There is always that moment when you work so hard on something that you end up being the best you can be. There is the shaky start, which is the beginning, where you don't know where you're going to go. There is the rise, where you finally have something figured out and you have consistently improved on yourself bit by bit. There is the peak, where you're on the top of your game. You are firing on all cylinders. Some people can manage this all throughout, but if they cannot, there is usually the fall, where it's either not as good as it was before, or even worse. That's not to say that things can't always be good despite it not reaching those highs as before, which is called seasonal rot. There are two reasons for this. First reason is because other people look up to the popular work and try to make something of their own. Sometimes it's a carbon copy of what is popular, and sometimes it actually becomes its own product. The latter sometimes being a little bit better than the popular work because it puts a different spin on the tropes and makes it more interesting. The second reason is timing. Something can only be popular for so long before people move on. It's past its expiration date in some respects, but the product still wants to be on top. So either it could gracefully bow out that way and end on a good note, or it could keep going while trying to mix things up, keep things fresh and interesting. If it stays the same, it will be stagnant, and the formula will be repeated until people end up leaving, going for better things. So they will try to add something new to the formula. And yes, this all applies to TV for the most part. And in terms of TV, there is one show that exemplifies what happens when you add something new to a long runner. However, it becomes apparent that it is not a good fit, especially at a later time. We all know about the fluctuating quality of the American version of The Office. The first season is not great because the writers were trying to get their footing down, the characters were not fully fleshed out, so it's going to go under early installment weirdness. The quality improved when season 2 was released, and it kept growing until either seasons 4, 5, or 6, depending on who you ask. The will they, won't they plot between Jim and Pam have been resolved already in season 4, and Greg Daniels and some of the creative team left to do Parks and Recreation by the season's end. With Paul Lieberstein becoming the showrunner, the problems with the show have been pronounced, but it was still watchable in season 5 and 6. However, near the end of season 7, Steve Carell left the show due to executive meddling involving his contract, and, without Michael Scott, there was a huge hole that could never be filled, and the seasonal rot started to sink in for the rest of the season. However, the ratings were still fairly decent, so the showrunners decided to go for a couple of more seasons. But they had to find a replacement for Michael Scott, so they got Will Ferrell's D'Angelo Vickers to be a replacement for a few episodes, which turned out to be a good thing because the more he stayed on, the worse he got. He was like if Michael Scott didn't grow out of his season 1 persona and was even more unlikable as a result. So, after that period, Andy became the manager, and that is an entire video on its own. But there still needed something else new to shake The Office up, and the show got its answer in the 7th season finale search committee. There were candidates who wanted to take Michael's position, but they were generally one-off gags by big names. One of the characters was Robert California, played by James Spader, and this appearance was positive at first. People saw this different energy from this character, and it was new. And with this new energy, Spader was added to the cast in the show's 8th season. Unfortunately, the character was one of the reasons why the 8th season was the show's nadir. What started out as fresh and fun turned out to stick out like a sore thumb to many people when the 8th season started airing, and there are 3 reasons why. First of all is stunt casting. Like I said earlier, Will Ferrell did not fit in the show despite being a well-known comedian. His temporary boss arc is considered one of the weaker points of the show. The one-offs with Jim Carrey, Ray Romano, and Will Arnett were very funny, but they were self-contained as opposed to being in multiple episodes. The show had guest stars in the show in the past to mixed success, but that is the main problem that the show had. The writers possibly thought that if they had a big name on the show, that would mean that the creativity would level out on their part, but it comes across as gimmicky, and it is all the more obvious when the person who is cast ends up not fitting into the show. James Spader is a prime example of shaking things up with a big-time actor, but it could only last so long. Now, stunt casting on a show is not always a bad thing. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has had Danny DeVito on the show since season 2 due to executive meddling, but it turned out to be a good thing because his character actually fit in the show. However, in DeVito's case, it was early on in the show and he got the tone of the show, while Spader came in much later while the humor was established few seasons prior, and who didn't really get the tone of it, which leads to another reason as to why James Spader didn't work well on the show: miscasting. We all know that Spader is a really talented actor. Take a look at when he was in movies like Less Than Zero, Pretty in Pink, and Mannequin, and you can see he is very talented. And he's not bad in TV either, as it was established before and after he was on The Office. He was on the last season of The Practice before he was on the spin-off Boston Legal, and a year after his stint on The Office, he starred in The Blacklist. However, as you can see, those shows utilize Spader's talents well. According to The Office, the untold story of the greatest sitcom of the 2000s, James Spader's acting style clashed with the rest of the cast. Where everyone else came from a comedic background to a point, James did not. He can be funny, but he was not a comedian. James Spader on The Office was like Robert Downey Jr. on Saturday Night Live. Both actors can be very funny and are very talented. However, doing full-blown comedies is not part of their acting styles. Try as they might, neither could find a footing on their respective shows, and they only lasted one season before leaving. Great actors can't do everything, and that's okay. No actor is perfect for all genres because their acting styles won't be used to what is already established. Which leads to another reason why Robert California stands out, and that's character tone. The main characters have a wide range of being the only sane person to characters less so. However, the show had enough clout to see that every one of these characters had a sense that they belonged there. Yes, most of them got broader as the show went on, but they still had character traits that matched the tone of the show. Sure, there is a lot of deadpan humor on the show, but there is also physical humor as well. However, because Robert California's character was created to make things uncomfortable, he was a wild card, and he had no character beyond just being intriguing, and that honestly got old quickly. Also, he brought a darkness to the show that really began to be a sore spot, and having a darker edge in a lighter show isn't always a bad thing. Take, for example, ensemble dark horse, Creed. He is popular because of dark elements that have been mostly implied. These black comedy bursts, if you will. And those dark comedy bursts have been used sparingly. And when Creed actually has a day in the limelight, it's excusable because he was already established. Unlike Creed, Robert was pretty much front and center for the entire season, and at times, the show's atmosphere seemed to change more and more every time he was on screen. And also, there was James Spader's acting style. Everyone else had a bit of an improv history. James trusted the writers enough to write his character so he would not have to find it. Unfortunately, the writers did not know how to write a character like Robert California. They wrote him as a wild card, a trickster, but again, it got old fairly quickly. He doesn't have any comedic quirks like everyone else does. Look at the mini clip video of the season 8 episode Garden Party. Everyone has a few laughs here or there. However, with California,
basil plant.
Oh, I thought you were going to bring the marmalade.
No, I'm certain you said basil.
that is not a joke, it's just a blatant lie. There is nothing funny about it. Sure, it's not the best episode, but it establishes why the character doesn't work in this setting. So when the character left at the end of the season, it made the show breathe again. The last season wasn't great, but at least the established humor from before was there, and the darkness that was Robert followed him. Robert California is a good example of trying to shake things up and it doesn't work. It seems like a good idea at the time, but ideas do fall apart. Big names do not equal big success. The Office started out with small names. Having big names actually leads to distractions, and it's not a good thing. Steve Carell was a correspondent for The Daily Show. Creed Bratton was a member of the folk rock 60s band The Grassroots. Phyllis Smith was a casting associate. These people were not the famous people we know after the show. The reason why the show was so popular was because it was just regular people doing regular things, and funny things happen. So when you have a big name celebrity to join your cast, the realism that you were going for goes out the window. There is no relatability. No one famous would come by where you would work and hang out for a few ships. And it goes to show you that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.